really nasty things have been said either side, and Lord only knows what kind of torrent of abuse I'm opening myself up for, but hey. The purpose of this is to explain why I'm voting for Marvin Rees and not George Ferguson for Bristol Mayor. Now, I've been chatting on Twitter about this, and someone argued with me that Bristol needs to be run as a business. And continuing with that analogy, I think George would be a marvellous chief marketing officer, but Marvin Rees needs to be CEO. Now, I think, George is a good man. Now, the tobacco factory is great, and he's done some amazing things for Bristol. But I don't like the showmanship over policy and the rhetoric and the spin and, how reactionary it all is. There's been a lot of mudslinging in this. There is, frankly, mental elements on either side, as well as for the other candidates. And, they need to calm the hell down. But I don't like that if Bristol First does it, it's banter. And if someone does it to Bristol First, it's slander. Pick and choose, play by a single rule. But it's the condescension that gets to me. He launched his campaign as a circus, with stilt walkers and whatnot, in a tent. And that annoyed me, firstly, because as the man never seen Batman Returns. And secondly, Bristol deserves a lot more credit than, bread and circuses on this. We live in this anaesthetised bubble in Twitterland of tweet-ups in canteen and browsing artisan markets on a Sunday, but you don't have to go very far in Bristol to see areas that live completely different to that. Bristol doesn't need any more bohemian slow food eateries or collaborative art spaces. Before we have slow, small business incubators, we need to make sure that the people of Bristol actually have money to spend there first. If they can afford childcare if needs be, that they have a decent transport system. There's a huge equality and social mobility problem in Bristol. We still have areas that only have, fee-paying cash machines, for crying out loud. And it seems that a large part of the Bristol Twitterati would prefer that there were certain Bristol postcodes that didn't exist. This is meant to be a Bristol decision, not a Southfield decision or a Clifton or a Redland decision. And, I feel quite passionately about this, and I'm not Mr. Labour Party faithful. I'll read the occasional email, but that's it, and if they send me something that starts off as Dear Comrade, they can sod right off. I've never been to a meeting, apart from, the parliamentary candidate thingy where Thagard Debonair was chosen. But I went door knocking on Saturday for Marvin. And in the afternoon, we were in Southmead speaking to folk, and we'd been the only people who'd shown any interest, and a lot of people there were like, well, there's no point voting, nothing will change. And this young guy called Duncan was with us, and he was out with us and saying, well, yeah, I normally would agree with you, but this is important. This is how you can change what it is to live, like what it's like to live where you live. And this got to me, if my biggest grumble is that the first bus timetable hasn't yet won the Orange Prize for Fiction, then I have it easy. What we need is policies that will change what it is like to live in Bristol. We don't need any more luxury riverside apartments. I don't know if you've noticed, but they're like a freaking rash at the moment. We don't let a team of property developers have their way with the city. What we need is affordable housing that isn't immediately snapped up by the buy-to-let crowd. And it's those fixing freaking problems first, policies that Marvin has, that makes me want to vote for him. A good CEO doesn't just spend everything on a marketing event or faster computers for sales. He spends time on the factory floor. He streamlines where needed, and he invests where production can most benefit. And Marvin's got a lot of flack, specifically from Bristol First, and others saying, well, he'll be a puppet for Labour. And, if he wins, yes, Labour HQ will make hay with it. They'll have an absolute field day. Of course they will. Mayors were Cameron's plan in the first place. And if there's no bigger up yours to Cameron, quite frankly, than their Labour mayor. But it's not like, the Bristol Labour Party has actually towed the party line in the past. And Marvin's, way too headstrong to let himself be manipulated by anyone. You have heard him speak, right? The same way that Ken Livingstone never, towed the Labour Party line, or Boris is like this permanent headache for the Conservatives. And then you have this kind of George weird pseudo-independent. And I don't think I'm being mad, but this is a question worth asking, right? From what I can gather, George was, he quit the Lib Dems at some point this year, after being a long-standing fee-paying member and running for Parliament for them a couple of times in the 80s. And he quit them in order to run for Mayor of Bristol as an independent. You know, I'm not mad. This is suspect, right? You know, if I ever say it, people are go, oh no, you're being so dreary bringing that up. But, you know, if Marvin Rees had done the same, he would have been flayed alive by public scrutiny. But George is above reproach because he wears wacky trousers and we all like the tobacco factory. And then we have the kind of weird anti-party but registering for a party thing. So, you know, George Ferguson runs as an independent, but then he registers a party, but then he says, well, it's only for marketing purposes and we just have to trust him. You know, and I'm a marketer. And, you know, that's exactly the sort of thing I would do. You know, you differentiate yourself from the ballot paper so that people who don't know any candidates and don't want to vote for a party, they just kind of scan down and go, oh, yeah, Bristol First, that sounds good. You know, tick there. It's very clever. Well done. But if he's willing to bend his own rules when it's convenient to him, well, it raises doubts with me. And then you have the weird merchant venturers thingy, and they look lovely folks from the outside and doing lots of things for charity, but then you look and it's kind of a bit weird, and you get the impression it's all about who you know, and, you know, it's odd. But, you know, coming back to the business analogy, you know, when you have a product that's underperforming, you don't just put a gloss of shiny marketing over it. You know, you don't just narrowly focus on a single demographic as your customer. Your business won't last long that way. You know, you go back to the factory floor, you fix the problems, and you make a better product. But Bristol isn't just buildings, you know, it's people. We need to invest in the people of Bristol. You know, George Ferguson would be a brilliant mayor in 4 or 6 years' time, when Bristol is that world-beating product, but we need to let Marvin get there first. That's why I am voting Marvin Rees for Mayor of Bristol on Thursday. Thank you.